And the art scroll, we're on 10B1. Adam, if you want to send to the group that we're on. We are on 10B1. We just started the story on 10B1, column 1, on the bottom of the page of Minyamin Avdei de Rav Ashi. We said the story of Binyamin, who was a servant of Rav Ashi, and his garment got soaked in water. And what did he do when his garment got soaked in water? He hung it up on top of the tzach. Thought it was a good place to hang up the wet clothing. And the rabbi told him, that's what the Gemara says, Binyamin Avdei Rav Ashi, you have it? Binyamin of the servant of Rav Ashi, it mishile kutonta b'maya. His garment became wet, soaked in water, and and he spread it out over the sukkah to dry it out. Amalei Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi said, Dalye, remove your shirt, remove your garment from the top of the sukkah. Why should you remove it? The low leimrule komisachachi b'dava hamakabel tumah. People shouldn't say that you are using material which is susceptible to tumah, has the ability to receive tumah, and you're using that material for your schach, because a garment is invalid to use as schach, right? We said, in order for something that's susceptible to receive tumah is not able to use as schach. That's why you use bamboo, branches, they're not able to become tameh. So, but since the garment could become tameh, it's invalid as schach. And therefore you should remove it, that people shouldn't come to say that you're using materials that are not kosher for a sukkah. The Gemara says, and people will make a mistake, and either they'll make a mistake, and they'll see that you're using these materials, they'll come to use those materials. So the Gemara says, people see that it's not using this as materials to be the schach, to be the cover for the sukkah. They see that it's wet. So if they see that it's wet, it's obvious to the people that I'm not putting there for schach purposes. Just like it would seem from here, just like decorations that we said is not something, even though decorations are mekabel tumah, do receive contamination, but since they're not there for the purpose of schach, the covering, it wouldn't invalidate the sukkah, the schach. So too, this item, even though it is a cover, it is covering the schach, but it's not there for that purpose of schach. It's not there for covering. To hang out to dry, it would not invalidate the schach. So people see it. So what's the problem? So it should not invalidate the sukkah. So the Gemara says, when I'm saying to you, make sure you remove it, I don't mean that you should remove it right now while it's wet. While it's wet, everybody sees that it's wet, and it's not a problem. But if it's not wet, and then when it dries out, then people are not going to know what is it there for. People are not going to say, you're not there to dry out, it's already dry. So then you have to be careful to remove it from the sukkah. You see, the question is, let's say something falls on top of your sukkah. Let's say you have, sometimes a ball goes on top of your sukkah, or let's say a sheet falls on top of your sukkah. Something fell out a window, and obviously, and somehow somebody threw something on top of your sukkah, and it's clear that it's not there for the purpose of covering your sukkah. So it would seem from this Gemara, we have to look into the halacha. It would seem to the Gemara, even though this material that went on top of your sukkah is not kosher material for schach, but if you have enough kosher schach that's providing proper shade, the fact that somebody threw something on top of your sukkah, which is not kosher schach, but it's clearly not there to cover your sukkah. It's obvious that this is not something that's used to cover a sukkah, and it's not coming for that purpose. It sounds from this Gemara, it shouldn't be a problem. It's not going to validate your schach, because it's clearly, good morning, Max, it's not for that purpose. So that's something interesting to think about certain things that sometimes find its way on top of a sukkah, regarding being concerned from it or not. But that's something to look into more in the halacha. Okay. Also, anyways, usually it's the item that falls on top of a sukkah. Let's say a ball, a basketball. We spoke about, good morning, unkosher. Good morning. We'll have to see more about what size of unkosher schach. If it's not so wide, if it's not 12 inches by 12 inches, also might not make a big issue. So that's another halacha about what the size of unkosher schach in order to invalidate. Okay, itma. We learned now the Gemara is going to talk about a little bit about nice sukkah. The Gemara is going to talk about decorations for sukkah, right? There's a special mitzvah to make a nice sukkah, right? To beautify a sukkah. So just like there's a mitzvah to have nice, beautiful tefillin, morning Max, and beautiful tzitzis, right? Beautiful tzitzit, beautiful talit, right? There's a mitzvah, beautiful sefer Torah, beautiful writing. All the mitzvot that you do, there's a special mitzvah to do it in a beautiful fashion. There's a special mitzvah, and there is a discussion: is that a biblical mitzvah or rabbinic mitzvah to beautify a mitzvah? Okay, but and the Gemara even says that you're supposed to pay extra, spend more money in order to do a mitzvah in a more fashionable, nicer way. Okay, so that's a little halacha regarding beautifying a mitzvah. Maybe tomorrow we should take out the Shulchan Aruch, more details about, because that's famous by etrog. And say hello to Dr. Navid and Ariel about an etrog. Spending more. If you have two etrogim in front of you, one etrog costs a certain amount of money, one etrog costs another amount of money. The Gemara talks about, how much a person should spend more to get the nicer etrog. The itma nois sukkah. You have decorations. So decorations are a beautiful thing, by the way. People should not make light of decorating a sukkah. It's a big deal to beautify a sukkah. So nois sukkah. So you have these decorations. Hamuflogim imena arba. But the issue here is that these decorations are not close to the ceiling, to the schach. Here is the roof of the sukkah, the schach, and then you have the decorations. So the decorations are supposed to be hanging within 4 tfachim of the schach. So when you put up your sukkah, when you make your sukkah, you should make sure that the decorations are within, we'll take the more stricter view, within 12 inches of the schach. If your decorations are within a foot keep your decorations close to the schach. And when the decorations, good morning, Michael.
Morning, Rabbi.
Morning. When the decorations are close to the schach, so the decorations become, so to speak, nullified by the schach. They become batel. They become secondary and to the schach, and they do not consider an issue that you have some foreign material, some foreign items that are above you. And even though the decorations are items that are not worth, can't use that as coverage. It's not kosher schach decorations, but you are allowed. And not only you're allowed, I would say you are encouraged to have decorations on your sukkah. Of course, you could put decorations on the walls. You don't necessarily have to have decorations hanging from the schach. Right. So we said the Gemara spoke about if you would have a beautiful embroidered, beautiful sheet, beautiful colors. Good morning, welcome back, Simon. If you would have beautiful sheet that's gorgeous, that's there for decorative purposes, let's say artistic, you painted something beautiful, Mr. Bitesh, on the sheet, and it looks gorgeous. There's a picture of Ravati Yosef on that sheet. So technically, the Mishnah says it's fine if it's there for decorative purposes, as long as that sheet is within. Okay, so here the Gemara is going to talk about how close to the schach the sheet could be. So if the purpose of the sheet is not to serve as a protector, not to serve as like schach to protect you from the sun, rather the sheet is there specifically and only for decorative purposes. So it comes out from the Gemara, that'll be fine. You could technically hang the sheet close to the ceiling of the sukkah, close to the schach. That's what it says in the Mishnah. And that would be fine. Here we're talking about, let's say it's a sheet. We're talking about a sheet right now, or that's how Rashi gives the case. And the sheet was beautiful, was decorated. It was there for the purpose of decoration purposes. And the sheet was, that the issue here is the sheet was more than a foot down from the schach. It was not within a foot of the schach. We're going to say, because we're going to say 4 tfachim. There's a question is how much is a tefach? Between 3 and 4 inches is a tefach. The 4 tfachim we'll say is between 12 and 16 inches. To take the more stricter route, we'll go with here. We're going to use the 12. Sometimes the 12 could be the more stricter. Sometimes the 16 could be the more stricter. Here we're going to use it to be more strict because we're going to say we're going to give you up to 12 inches to place your decorations, up to 4 tfachim. The case of the Gemara is you place the decorations more than 4 tfachim from the schach. So it's lower than 4 tfachim, and we're going to call it in our practical purposes lower than 12 inches. That means here, if this is the roof, this is the schach, I have it lower than 12 inches. Okay? God bless you. If it's within 12 inches, we said you're good. Within 4 tfachim, if you have the decorations within 4 tfachim, within a foot, that's where you hang the decorations. Don't let the decorations come lower than a foot. But if the decorations are lower than a foot, that's going to be discussion of our Gemara right now. Is that a problem, or that's not a problem? Is that clear? No, the decorations are not kosher schach. You can't use decorations to cut. A guy says, you know what? I want to use as my schach to cover me. I want to use decoration. I'm going to decorate the ceiling. That's going to be my cover. I'm going to spread out beautiful sheets as the schach. That's not kosher. The sheets are not kosher schach. But if I have schach, if I have kosher schach, I made a kosher sukkah. And now I want to beautify that sukkah by putting beautiful sheets, embroidered, gorgeous sheets. Well, let's say we'll talk about Iranian rugs. The beautiful Iranian rugs. I know I've seen Iranian sukkahs on people of Iran. They have beautiful rugs on the walls of the sukkah. That's how they decorate the sukkah. What? That's fine, no problem. But technically, it would seem from our Gemara, even placing a rug underneath the ceiling of the sukkah, just for beautification, like those beautiful rugs, it would sound like from the Gemara that it would be fine. As long as that sheet would be within 12 inches, within a foot of the schach. If it's within 12 foot, so it's not a separate entity. When you're far away, when you're close to something, right, Michael? When you're close to something, then you're connected to that item. When there's a distance of you from something, then that creates less of a connection, right? And therefore, if there's a distance, if the decoration is where my lower hand is more than 4 tfachim, it's a foot away from the schach, that separation makes it an independent entity, according to one opinion, and it's no longer secondary and nullified by the schach. We don't look at it as one entity. We don't look at when you have decorations and you have schach, and the decorations are right underneath the schach, within a foot of the schach. So then we look at it, it's schach that's decorated. You like the explanation, Max? It's schach. I'm living in a sukkah which has schach, but the decorations are like, They fit into like you put a design on a wall. It's the wall, but you put it as a design. The painting is in the wall, so to speak. It becomes part of the thing. But when the thing is separated, is a certain distance, if it's more than a foot away from the schach, it's considered like its own entity. It's no longer considered, and therefore you're not sitting under schach. You're sitting under decorations. And decorations it's like you're sitting under, there's something else that's interrupting you, a decoration that's not called schach, and there's something else interrupting you and the ceiling of the sukkah. That's
so Rabbi, the 12 inches you're saying is the one tefach. Isn't the halakha one tefach? It can't hang past one tefach off the schach.
The halacha would be you have up to 4 tefachim.
Okay, perfect.
Up to 4 tefachim, which would be about a foot.
So basically, you could extend the schach up to 4 tefachim. You're saying a foot.
But it's not. You're not really extending schach. You're placing decorations, which is not kosher. But it's not there for schach purposes. It's decorations that not there for coverage. It's there for beautification. So as long as the decorations are within 1 foot of the schach, that's fine. Therefore, you have to be careful. The halacha says you should not hang decorations. Decorations should not come lower than a foot. So the type of decorations you buy for a sukkah should not be these long decorations. They should be like, a lot of people, they put these things that go across, like these, like holiday, Hanukkah, something, these, what I'm talking about. It has these,
the stringers, the metallic stringers. It explodes into a dreidel. A little circle becomes a dreidel.
Right. So those dreidels have to be careful how long they are. You don't want them to be longer than more than a foot. But they have those little things, the colorful gold, things that go across. That, you hang up in a sukkah. That is a common type of decoration that people might run across a sukkah.
So string lights, Rabbi, string lights.
Right, very good. So all the lights also now, but they do point out, as long as it's not a danger for for the sukkah, meaning let's say in the old days they would hang lamps from the ceiling of the sukkah. So the lamp, but you don't want the lamp if you're going to get too close to the schach, it might make a fire. So that would be an exception where there would be, they wouldn't be so particular because there's. If hanging a lamp, if the lamp would be more than 4 tefachim, if it's more than a foot down, but generally we should try to keep the lights, and today our lights are not really so dangerous for the schach, right? Our materials that it's not a live fire, so I would say it's best try to hang them as long as it's not dangerous within a foot, that it should try not to come down a foot from the ceiling of the sukkah, unless it is. If it's dangerous, then you can. If it's dangerous, since it's not 4 tefachim wide, since it's not 12 inches wide, usually the lights are thin, like Michael said. They're not so wide. So therefore, even if it would be more than 4, even if it would be lower than a foot, it wouldn't be such an issue since it's not so wide. If it's necessary to have the lights more than a foot down, but in general, the lights should also be, if possible, within any, within a tefah, within 12 inches, within a foot of the schach. They make a note. If you want to look at 10b2 for a second. If you want to turn the page to 10b2, note number 12 in the art scroll, you'll see it says, when the halacha follows this view, that means the view that he's referring to is that you can't have decorations lower than a foot, lower than 4 tefachim from the schach. Strictly speaking, however, everyone have it? Max, you got it? Adam, you got it? Well, 10b2. Strictly speaking, a decoration cannot invalidate unless it is 4 tefachim wide. Unless the decoration is a foot wide. Therefore, low-hanging decorations of less than the width of that width, if you have a decoration that's less than a foot wide, could not under any circumstances be considered an intervening tent. Nevertheless, the Ramah cites Ma'aril that as a precaution, all decorations, regardless of width, it doesn't make a difference how wide it is. Any decoration, you have those thin decorations, except for lamps, which are a potential fire hazard when close to the schach, should be placed high up close to the schach. So in practical purposes, we're saying in practice, all decorations should not come lower than 1 foot from the schach. So when you're making your sukkah, tell all your people that that are helping you with your sukkah, your family, friends that are involved in your sukkah, all decorations should be within a foot of the schach. Okay, that would be the way to go.
Rabbi,
Again,
if the lamp is hanging more than a foot, okay, doesn't it just make that part of the sukkah not kosher? It doesn't.
Right. Even very good point. Even that, right? The question would be, should I and usually they're hanging up they're on top of the table anyways, and you're not eating
exactly
on that. Right. So that also would be a good point, Dr. Navid is saying. So even if the lamp is more than a foot down, generally anyways it's over the table. That's point number one, and you're not sitting underneath. And point number two is that it's not even a foot wide, right? Usually how like Michael said, it's a thin. Usually people have thin types of the types of lamps or types of lights that they put into a sukkah, maybe 6 inches wide, right? I don't think it's so wide. So according to that, it also shouldn't pose such a real issue. It's just that we are careful in general not to hang things lower than a foot. But if we have to hang something like a lamp lower than a foot, I think the best way to do it is, like you said, Dr. Navid, place it over the table. That would be the best way, practical way to do it.
Over the table only.
Over the table, therefore, you're not sitting. Meaning, it's over the table, not over your head.
Okay, that part.
Right. The fact that little spot in the sukkah has no kosher schach, but doesn't ruin the whole sukkah. If you will have a certain amount of not kosher schach that runs across the whole length of the sukkah or the whole width of the sukkah, that could break the sukkah into two. That we'll see more about that. Let's say you have a foot of schach, and that foot goes across the whole sukkah. That could split the whole sukkah. Now it's like two different. Now you have two sukkahs, and now you have to see: do you have 3 walls? Which side do you have? Do you have 3 walls? Do you have the proper spacing? So that will be the situation if you have.
Rabbi, in what sense does the entire sukkah becomes not kosher?
The entire sukkah will not become kosher if let's say you would have, according to our Gemara, if you would place a decorative sheet,
right,
a decorative sheet across the whole sukkah, or across a certain amount of the sukkah, that if it's lower than a foot across the sukkah, it will be considered that area does not have kosher schach. And then you have to figure out what spots you have left, what do you have left in the sukkah? Do you have enough coverage of of the other areas of the sukkah? How many walls do you have left, as a result of that? Just like I gave you the example, if you have a not kosher schach that runs in the width, across the sukkah, it could break the sukkah into 2 parts. And now you have to figure out what do you have left? How many walls I got left? That are kosher. Okay. So that's
within the first feet, it's considered kosher?
Within what? Say it again?
If it's within 4
tefachim, within a foot, we said if you have something that's not there for coverage purpose, it's not there for schach.
Right.
It's not.
It's for decoration.
for decoration purposes. So then,
Wow, that's
the decorations become like we call batel, become nullified, become part. It's like it's like blended. It's like a design in the schach. So we don't look at it as if, you know what, with the decoration, not kosher schach. But the fact that it's so close, it's within a foot of the schach, it's like blended into the schach, and and therefore it does not ruin the schach. The decoration, as long as within a foot of the schach, doesn't ruin the schach. There's even an opinion in the Gemara, but that's not the halacha, that says that even a decoration that's more than a foot lower than the schach, the fact that it's a decoration becomes part of the schach. It's there to beautify. So that's going to be the argument in the Gemara. How far down, how low could that decoration be to say that we're going to connect it to the schach, that it's like part of the schach and doesn't ruin the schach? That's going to be our Gemara right now, is the machlokas. But again, la halacha, we say we should not allow it, should not have it more than a foot lower than the schach. But at the end of the day, also it would seem that if at the end of the day, if let's say it was a foot lower, as long as it's not a foot wide, it should not invalidate. Will not be such a big problem. That's what it would seem. But let's see. Let's see the Gemara. So the Gemara says like this: Itmar, Noi Sukkah, the beautiful decorations for the Sukkah, Hamuflogin Mimena Arba'a. That is 4 tfachim, which we're translating 1 foot lower than the schach. Rav Nachman Omar Keshera. Rav Nachman says it's kosher, no problem. The sukkah is still good. Rav Chizda v'Rabba bar Avuna Amri Psula. Rav Chizda v'Rabba bar Avuna say that it is pasul. If you have that type of, if it's 4 tfachim away, it's no longer considered part of the schach, and therefore it's no longer considered like a design of the schach, and it's like a separate entity, and then you're sitting under something else. You're not sitting under schach. You're sitting under decorations that are not kosher coverage. Rashi calls it, it's like an ohel. It's like a tent that's separating you. This type of schach when it's lower than a foot down from the schach. Now the Gemara relates a story. Rav Chizda v'Rabba bar Avuna iklu lebei Reish Kalusa. Rav Chizda and Rabbi Rav Huna, who were of the opinion that say it's psula, they say that since it's 4 tfachim from the schach, that's the foot away from the schach, which is, they say it's not considered anymore nullified, it's considered its own tent. They came to the house of Reish Kalusa. Reish Kalusa means the head of Reish Kaluta, the head of the galut, the head of the exile. Okay, so let's say they came to Bavel, they came to Babylon. The leader of the Jewish community. There was like a political position also, that he was considered the head of the Jewish community, and he came to greet the rabbi, who was head, like you have sometimes you say, like you have the chief rabbi in Israel today, right? You know, he represents the Jews of Israel. So this is the position also, that there was a chief rabbi, so to speak, the head of the Golut. And some explain, there's a mitzvah, and this was their rabbi. There's a mitzvah to go to greet your rabbi on the holiday, on the Yom Tov. So they went for that purpose, or some say for other purposes, also other possible mitzvah purposes, they went to this place. They went there and Agninu Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman was not the Reish Galuta. He wasn't that, but he was like managerial position. He was in charge of, you know, when important guests come, to show the guests where to stay, and it was Sukkot, and he placed them, these rabbis, Basukkah shenoyeha muflogim imena bar tvachim. they placed them in a sukkah that they had these sheets. It would seem they had these sheets that were beautiful sheets, embroidered, beautiful, decorative sheets, and they were running across the sukkah, and they were lower than a foot. The sheets came lower than a foot from the schach, and he placed them in such a sukkah. And even ishtiku, and they were quiet for the Omulamidi. They went and they slept in this sukkah. Even though this sukkah, according to their opinion beforehand, the sukkah is not kosher for them. They said that they were of the opinion, and by the way, it's 2-1, right? Usually that's, I think, one of the reasons I saw the halacha follows their opinion that you're not allowed to have the decoration more than a foot, because we have two rabbis said it's no good, right? It was Rav Chizda and Rabbi Rav Huna. Two rabbis say it's no good, and Rav Nachman is one rabbi that says it's good. So the halacha follows the majority. The two of the rabbis said it. Two of the rabbis said it's not good. And these two rabbis that said it's not good, if the decorations are more than a foot away from the schach, they came for a guest for holiday of Sukkot, and they were placed in a sukkah that they themselves, the morning, hold it's not kosher for sukkah. And you know what happened? They didn't say anything. Now the question is, why didn't they say anything? If you come somewhere, some point out, we say you come somewhere and you have certain halacha, you follow a certain halacha. You can't, and then they tell you to do something which is not against, it's against the way you understand. You're supposed to say something. That, I personally have different. I keep different halacha. Let's say a guy goes ahead. You go to a house of someone who's Sfard, and in the Sfardim they go ahead on Pesach. They're eating rice on Pesach, and you're an Ashkenazi. You come to his house and he wants to serve you rice. So you say, my custom is I don't eat rice. With all due respect, your custom is you eat rice, and I don't eat rice. They give you rice. The fact that he's able to eat it, because that's his custom. He's allowed to. You hold, you can't. So you say, with all due respect, I don't eat rice. So now they came to the sukkah. Why did they say anything? If they hold this sukkah is not kosher, if I hold this sukkah is not kosher, you hold the sukkah is kosher. For you, it's a good sukkah. For me, it's not a good sukkah. So it's not that I'm being stringent. It's a stringency. So maybe I will not hold my stringency. There is such a concept.
Because
sometimes a person might have a stringency that's not. Yes.
They're probably not eating. They're just sitting in something that is not considered a sukkah, and they don't want to embarrass him because he has something to hold on to. They probably didn't eat.
Okay, so but back to the vid, they slept in the sukkah. The mitzvah of sukkah, you can't sleep outside. They slept in the sukkah, and this was their place of they were sleeping, and that was so. I once heard an idea. Sometimes you might have a stringency, and you go to someone else's house, and they offer you a certain food that you hold that the halacha says it's good, but you want to be extra strict. It could be sometimes you might take you might say, I'm not going to use my stringence. I'll be stringent in most areas, but if in this particular situation, when I'm in someone else's house and everything is kosher, it's not a question that, but they want to give. Let's say, for instance, there's something called yashan, chadash. There's certain types of things that certain people are strict about. But but in general, if you hold the halacha allows it. Except you take upon your stringency. So sometimes when you're in someone else's house, some people, again, it depends. I'm not saying if that's the perfect example, because some people might be even careful. It depends how well they took on that stringency. If you took on the stringency in a serious way, it's one thing. But sometimes there are certain things that people conduct themselves in a certain way, but not in a way they treat it as the law. They just treat it, they're being strict. So sometimes you might not be strict under other circumstances, if the halacha allows it. But here they held it's not allowed. So how did they sleep there? So the Gemara says, Amalahu. So Rav Nachman said to the rabbis, Hadur b'Rabbana meishmatayu? Have you retracted from what you held earlier? You held earlier that if you have decorations that are more than a foot, more than 4 tefachim from the schach, if it's lower than 4 tefachim, it will not be good. Have you changed your mind? So Onrule, no, they said, no, we did not change our mind. So if you didn't change your mind, so why did you say that? Why did you say, I can't stay in such a sukkah? He says, Anan shluchei mitzvah anan. We are involved in a mitzvah, in a mission of a mitzvah. And upeturan min sukkah. When you're involved in one mitzvah, you're exempt from another mitzvah. What does that mean? So Tosafos points out, if we would go ahead and say that, the sukkah is no good, and we got to go ahead and find another sukkah, that was going to take time to set up another sukkah, and that would take us away from the mitzvah that we were involved in doing. And maybe it will make us late, and we'll be up later at night, and we'll be able to be up early in the morning for our mission or whatever. It would take away from the mission that we were involved with. And therefore, since it would take away from the mission that we're involved with, since we're in the middle of a mission of mitzvah, so when you're engaged in one mitzvah, if you're going to go ahead and you are exempt from doing the other mitzvah, if by doing the other mitzvah, it's going to take you away to lose this mitzvah. So therefore, that's what they were saying, and that's how Tosfos explains. If you look at the Tosfot, Shluchei Mitzvah Anan, the small Tosfot, says Shluchei Mitzvah Anan, Kagon, Shahoyu Mizbatlin, the headline is Shluchei Mitzvah, Shahoyu Mizbatlin Min HaMitzvot, we would have had nullified, we would have to stop doing a mitzvah, Im Hoyu Machazrin Achas Sukkah Acheret. If we would have looked for another sukkah, we would have lost out the mitzvah that we were involved with. We do not stop the mitzvah. The rule is, if you're involved in a mitzvah, if you could stop this mitzvah, do another mitzvah, and come back to this mitzvah, then you do it. You stop mitzvah, come back to that mitzvah. But if you would stop this mitzvah, do the other mitzvah, you would lose this mitzvah. You don't stop this mitzvah to do another mitzvah. Okay, wish everyone a beautiful day. Back tomorrow. Thank you all for joining us. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Great day, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
you too. Good to see you. All the best.
I have a question.
Yes. Me?